Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Pep here and you're watching The Sentinel. I've been seriously into fragrances now for about a year, and I really feel like I've learnt a lot in that time just because they've become such a focus for me and I've become pretty passionate about them. And over that time, it's become quite clear that the few fragrances that I've really connected with, in other words, instantly loved from the first time I smelled them and wore them, and they sit pretty clearly on the top of the tree in terms of my collection and what I have, and it's quite easy for me to name my top 4 or 5 fragrances. Recently I smelled one which had that impact for me, and it's from the house of Fort and Manle, and that one was, unexpectedly for me, Confessions of a Garden Gnome. Okay, so just some straight up facts. It was released in 2016, last year, along with most of the other range from Fort and Manle. This is classified in Fragrantica as a woody, floral, musky, and that really doesn't mean much to me, apart from the fact that, you know, there's elements of wood and musk and florals in here. But what I love about this fragrance is that once I learnt what the inspiration or what the brief was for Rosé Fort, who created this, his inspiration was, to paraphrase, a garden gnome that sits in a garden and never moves, stationary, but experiences all 4 seasons of the year. And what this brief was to create a perfume that managed to guide you through that 4 seasons in a wearing. You know, in a few hours you experience all of that. And again, you know, I talk about perfumes replicating something. Perfumes really are just not so much replicating something, they're trying to give an impression of something. And why this one connected with me, and if it isn't obvious already, I love this fragrance. Why this one connected with me was because it was as soon as I smelled it, it was so evocative to me. And if you're a kid who's lucky enough to have a childhood where you spent a lot of time growing up and playing in gardens or in the park and, you know, experiencing nature and the outdoors in general, there's almost nothing in this fragrance that you can smell that wouldn't remind you of that. And I'm applying that to myself. I don't want to generalize and say that everyone will have that experience, but that's how it connected to me. So what I'll talk about now is, I don't want to get too philosophical or deep about how I feel about this fragrance, because it's obvious it's a love for me. I'll talk about the progression and how it develops on the skin and how it leaves you with those impressions of the 4 seasons. So as always, the notes will run across the screen, but I'll talk about opening, mids, and then the dry down. So here's my beautiful bottle, lid off. I'll just spray some the back of my hand to remind myself of the opening. So in the opening I get citruses, spice, and I do know that there is coriander in here, and I was having difficulty working out how coriander works in this fragrance and whether I was picking it up. And one interesting thing that happened when I was testing this was that I was picking up something that actually reminded me of the material that a garden gnome is made of, and I guess they can be made up of different things like clay or cement or porcelain or whatever they're made of. But I got that sense from something I was smelling in the opening, along with some citrus, some sweet citrus, and the spiciness, and I found that the coriander in perfumery can sometimes give off a clay-like element, and I'm guessing that's what that is that I'm picking up. But going back to the inspiration for the fragrance, what I get in the opening of this fragrance is springtime, okay, and it's literally almost early spring, and then once it starts to develop into late spring and then summer, and therefore the perfume is moving from top notes into heart notes, you start to get a bit more florals, and you get, I certainly get some lily, there's a little bit of rose there, but the main one, the star of the heart of this perfume for me is the violet leaf. And so what that does is give you a sense of the high summer, in other words, the sun being at its highest point, because for me violet leaf is a very light note, and it does give you this sense of extra light and extra sunshine. But then what happens here is there's almost a tinge of something tropical in here that really then finishes off that whole transition from spring into summer, and that's really nice, and you really notice it almost. It's on your skin, before your nose. You're moving from one season. For me, it starts at spring, and it moves into warm. The heart of this perfume moves into the warmer months, and then from there you start to creep into the end of summer, and then essentially for me the dry down is about the colder months of the year. So the Garden Gnome is transitioning slowly, and what happens once the mids start to die down, the heavier notes in the base start to come in on their own. So what I get is, certainly I'll get some cedar, which really, cedar really is an autumn note for me. I get cedar. There's a little bit of warm amber. There's an amber accord there as well. And interesting for me, I was picking up, when I was smelling it, a smell similar to bark, and I think that might be the birch here, and the birch that's used in the dry down here in the base notes is not so much a tarry birch like you would get in a lot of other fragrances that give off that smoky vibe. This is a really like almost dry wood, so you do get that sense of brown leaves falling to the ground. And then what happens is you get a little bit of saltiness that almost reminds you of rain, wet concrete, or not so much even wet concrete, wet brick paving, everything you find in some gardens at different times of the years, and there's different things going on. And really it's pretty genius how that has been accomplished with this fragrance. And I mean, I have overanalyzed this obviously, but the bottom line is it's a beautiful fragrance to wear. To me, in terms of green floral muskies, you can talk about green Irish tweed, which is a beautiful fragrance. This immediately sits up at that level for me. Not that I'm saying that they're similar, but if I think of green fragrances, I automatically think of green Irish tweed, and now this is at that level for me, if not higher. This is beautiful to wear. I think it would probably shine in spring and late spring, early summer, but I would wear this all year round without hesitation. And it's got good sillage and projection. The only thing the only thing I've found with this is that I become quite anosmic to this quite quickly. So at first I was worried that it wasn't lasting on my skin, because this is an extrait de parfum as well. It's very concentrated compared to eau de toilettes and eau de parfums. But when other people were around me, they could still smell it after hours. So, 8 to 10 hours easily. But unfortunately for me, I kind of start to lose it after 5 or 6. So hopefully that's not the case with everyone. I'm pretty sure it's not, because other people who have tried this and reviewed it have a different experience. Regardless of that point, this is a love for me. It's well in my top 5 fragrances. It's my discovery of 2017 so far. It's my favorite in the Fort and Manle line quite easily, even though I love some of the other ones. Confessions of a Garden Gnome. I really urge everyone to try and get some samples off the website, and it's worth buying a bottle if you love it, because it's something I don't want to be without now. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of that, and I hope I haven't been rambling on too much about my love for this fragrance, but it really is. That's Confessions of a Garden Gnome, Fort and Manle, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.